Hello, friends. James Stevenson back with another episode of Who's Hating Hard on Tesla Today. I'll check in with my co-host Loki here before we launch into the content to show you that he is curled up in bed. You can keep an eye on Loki and the Loki's bed cam down here as I turn my attention to this post in which I was tagged on X by Rolf Vaba, maybe. I don't know how to pronounce his name exactly, but I took a stab at it, Rolf. Some HHHTT material at I cannot underscore enough. That's me. He's tagging me for who's hating hard on Tesla today, but why? What is he replying to? Well, I'll go back and share the desktop and scroll on up to see. He's replying to David Zipper, who's hating hard on Tesla today, at David Zipper, if you want to follow his complaints, which I think is what you're going to get if you follow him on X. Who tweeted, "The Cybertruck's design is reckless. Its weight, acceleration, stainless steel panels, and boxy front could worsen the U.S. road safety crisis. Even so, federal regulators are powerless to halt its launch. That should worry all of us." Me in at Slate. So he tags Slate here, and he links to the article, and he shows a screenshot of the article. And this is what a Cybertruck looks like, if you don't know what Cybertrucks look like. Looks like this. Tesla showed off the prototype version of this, which looked very similar more than 4 years ago. So maybe not all that new a vehicle to the collective consciousness. But David Zipper thought he would write an article about how dangerous it is because it's bigger, faster, and stronger. Well, is it? Is it though? Let's read the article and see. So there's your headline again. We're about to find out how dangerous the Cybertruck really is. Regulators can't do anything about it. Not yet. And if you want to just pause this photo and gaze upon the beauty of the Cybertruck, you can do that. This was from the original unveil. This is not the Cybertruck you get today. You can tell by looking at the door handles here. The door handles don't work that way anymore. And there are probably several other cues, but that was the first one that occurred to me to tell you you can know this is not a production Cybertruck, because production Cybertrucks don't have door handles here. They have little buttons right above the door proper that activate an actuator that pushes the door open for you. So then you just touch the button here, the door pops open, you grab it from the other side of the door right there, and you pull it open. That's how you get in. There must be a rule at Tesla that every time you make a new generation vehicle, the door handles have to work totally differently than they did before. With its sharp angles, trapezoidal body, and stainless steel and supposedly bulletproof exterior, Tesla Cybertruck looks significantly more menacing than a typical... I couldn't even get through the end of that sentence. Than a typical car. I was laughing before I got to the end. In whose opinion? I guess in your opinion, David Zipper. All right. I'm not going to call him OK Boomer or OK Karen the way some of the people did in the replies, but that's the general reaction he sparked on X when posting this type of nonsense the rest of the way through the article. It was thus unsurprising that urban planning and road safety advocates reacted to the Cybertruck's recent delivery event with dismay and anger. The Center for Auto Safety posted that it was dangerous to everyone else on the road. The Urbanist Outfit Streets blog ran a story headlined, "How to Build a Car That Kills People, Cybertruck Edition." Well, that doesn't sound incendiary or exaggerated in any way. Seems like a measured take that carefully analyzed the state of the safety of American highways today versus comparable pickups that people would otherwise buy if Cybertruck weren't on the market. I have some bad news for those apprehensive about the Cybertruck's impact on road safety. Regardless of how dangerous the vehicle is, federal officials are powerless to prevent its sale or use on public roads. Oh no. The nanny government state can't stop people from selling stuff people want to buy. That's exaggerated. I'm trying to be entertaining in my reaction here. Even if the Cybertruck is as deadly as some observers predict, federal officials will have their hands tied for quite a while. Like it or not, such regulatory impotence is baked into America's laissez-faire approach toward car safety. At the moment, little is definitively known about how dangerous the Cybertruck really is. The federal government has not shared safety ratings, nor has the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, which conducts its own crash tests. Still, much of what we can ascertain from press releases, photos, and videos appears worrisome. And the most concerning Cybertruck features are not necessarily those that have attracted the most criticism. So what did David Zipper do? He made the mistake of going and asking someone who's a professional vehicle crash tester. Raul Arbeláez oversees the IIHS Vehicle Research Center outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, where he spends his days watching what happens when cars crash into things. He told me that he has evaluated the safety of hundreds of car models, although he has not yet gotten his hands on a Cybertruck. But fasten your seatbelts, because this is the most dangerous vehicle that's ever been tested, right? But based on what he saw in a video of a Cybertruck hitting a wall, he brushes off the social media freakout about the Cybertruck's alleged lack of a crumple zone, a design feature that allows a crashing vehicle to collapse like an accordion, absorbing much of its force. From Arbeláez's perspective, nothing in that video looked out of the ordinary. And even if I was observing it in person, he told me, I'd never form a judgment without downloading records from the dummy and accessing high-precision data about how the vehicle structure intruded around the occupant. The crash test video looks just like the crash test video from a similar vehicle, from an F-150, right? AI driver with no E in the handle posted a video comparison. Cybertruck on the top, Ford F-150 on the bottom. It's the same. It crumples the same. Lack of a crumple zone is not an appropriate way to characterize Cybertruck. People assume that because the thing is made of ultra-hard stainless steel, that the front won't crumple when it crashes, but it will. It was designed by Tesla's safety engineers, the same folks who made the safest 4 cars ever tested by NHTSA. The Model Y, the Model 3, the Model X, the Model S. Those are the safest vehicles you can buy. If the thing you're concerned about the most is crash safety, you should buy a Tesla. You can't find a safer vehicle to buy because the engineers at Tesla designed them that safely. Why do people think the Cybertruck will be different? Just because it's made of an ultra-hard material on the panels, I guess. Which is a valid criticism, I guess, if you were going to limit your article to that. But this article isn't limited to that. But other aspects of the Cybertruck's design do raise red flags for Arbeláez. In particular, he worries about the vehicle's many sharp edges, which seem capable of slicing a person thrust against them. Anytime you have a body part hitting a hard edge, that's a stress concentration, he said. You're going to cause additional harm. He is also concerned about what the Cybertruck's stainless steel exterior could do to a human. If one of your body parts, especially the head, strikes a panel that is also bulletproof, that panel may not give very much, he said. Would you rather fall into a concrete sidewalk or a stack of pillows? Well, there's pros and cons to everything in life. And if you are an interior occupant of a Cybertruck, what you want is rigidity, like the side pole intrusion test. I'm not sure if I got the name of that test exactly right, but you know the one I mean. They slide the car sideways into essentially a telephone pole is what it's meant to simulate, I guess. And they see, does that pole protrude into the cabin of the vehicle and injure people or not? Right? What you want is rigidity, and Cybertruck has better rigidity than, I mean, it's comparable to carbon fiber tub sports car rigidity, right? When rigidity really matters for racing through corners. In multi-million-dollar race cars, that's the kind of rigidity Cybertruck has because of these castings and exterior body panels around the frame, making it very resistant to intrusion, right? The flip side of that, everything has pros and cons, is that if you're the thing being hit by the Cybertruck, you're going to bounce off, right? You're not going to go into the cabin. I mean, neither of those things is great. You don't. Traffic accidents are a real thing. The real world is messy and idiosyncratic. You cannot prevent all accidents. One of the things Tesla is best at is active safety systems. So Teslas do automatic braking. Teslas do lane departure correction for you. Teslas will actively steer away from vehicles that are intruding into your lane, stuff like that, right? Tesla scores really high in NCAP testing on pedestrian safety, bicyclist safety, etc. The car is supposed to stop before a collision happens, and it does under those test scenarios, and in many others, right? Tesla's not gaming the system trying to solve for only the safety tests they know these agencies are going to run on their vehicles. They're looking at real-world crash data and trying to figure out, okay, even though there isn't a test that simulates for this kind of situation, we're going to make sure that our vehicles perform well under those conditions. And they build in the appropriate crumple zones in the front of the car or wherever else they're needed to promote safety for those inside and outside the vehicle as much as possible, right? This is a heavy vehicle, like any other pickup truck, right? And it's going to be doing highway speeds like any other vehicle on the road. So there will sometimes be collisions, and that's true of this vehicle or any other vehicle someone would have bought that's comparable if the Cybertruck weren't on the market. So I don't know if the Cybertruck is presenting many new risks to the public, unless your risk is doing what Jason Camisa did, not paying attention, backing up past one of the edges, and cutting himself on one of the sharp edges of a body panel where it comes to a point at one of the corners. All right, the Cybertruck's uniquely boxy, elevated front end. Uniquely boxy? Now, this isn't true. It may have been in Jason Camisa's video where he lined up an F-150 next to a Cybertruck. At least the Cybertruck has a down-sloping hood. Most other pickups have this very square front cliff and then a flatter hood on them. So if you're a person standing in between these two, from the Cybertruck, you've got a better chance of the driver seeing you than in one of these pickups where the front end is much higher above the bumper. So this is just garbage. The Cybertruck doesn't have a uniquely boxy front end. Could magnify the risk in head-on collisions, especially when striking those walking, biking, or in a wheelchair. Last month, IIHS released new research finding that vehicles with higher and more vertical front ends are significantly more likely to kill pedestrians. Well, then why isn't this article about those? Why isn't this article about the Ford F-150 or the Chevy Silverado or the Dodge Ram pickup or the, Toyota Highlander or Honda Ridgeline or whatever? Other aspects of the Cybertruck's design are almost certainly dangerous, but they are not unique. At around 6,800 pounds, the Cybertruck weighs more than two Honda Accords, or about the average of its class. Its class is full-size pickups. Full-size pickups weigh around 7,000 pounds. That's on the upper end of car models, but some others are even heftier. You'll need to add a third Accord to reach the weight of a Hummer EV, because the Hummer EV has to carry around a preposterous 220 kilowatt-hour battery pack or something to be able to get any kind of decent range with as poorly engineered as it is. All else being equal, heavier cars convey more force in a crash, and they will cover more distance before coming to a halt when a driver slams on the brakes. Yeah, I mean, That's true, but it's not unique to the Tesla Cybertruck. There are many heavier vehicles, some far heavier, right? Like, a lot of Americans aren't aware of this, but in the US, uh, we're allowed to have 18-wheel semi tractor trailers carry, I want to say like 40 tons worth of weight on them or something. Maybe a 40-foot trailer and I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot more than other countries permit on their roads. So if you go to Europe and you look around and you're like, hey, why don't these guys use regular semi trucks with long trailers behind them? It's because they're illegal. They weigh too much. The Europeans said, no, we don't want those things barreling down the Autobahn at, whatever, 200 kilometers an hour, however fast they would be driving them, because it's hard to stop that much weight and it's going to kill whoever it hits. Well, yeah, and that does happen in the U.S. a lot, right? The inertia caused by the mass of those vehicles at speed is going to take a long time or a long distance to stop, or both. Uh, the Cybertruck's superfluous power is yet another concern and an important one. So this is where it gets like super complainy. Last month, Tesla claimed the high-end Cyberbeast version will go from 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. Such pickup is comparable to a Formula One race car and totally badass. No, he didn't say that. He said, and well beyond the needless acceleration already offered by competitors, like the Ford F-150 Lightning, that can go from 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. And the government needs to step in here and tell people that unless you need acceleration, it's illegal. You shouldn't be able to buy a car that can do 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds because you don't have a need to do that. That is not my political affiliation. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I don't think it's any of the government's business to tell you whether it should be legal for you to buy a pickup that can do 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. Some people, like David Zipper, think that it is the government's job to do that. Although such power presents obvious risks to other street users who lack time to get out of the way. Now, what is David imagining is happening here? Does he think people are doing 0 to 60 sprints into crowds of people? Like, that's not a typical use case that I'm aware of. There has to be a role for the driver to be responsible here, right? The government can't make the highways safer by passing laws that say everyone must drive safely all the time. Those laws exist already. It's already your responsibility as the driver of a vehicle on public roads to not hit people and kill them. It's already illegal to do that. So you could pass more laws to try to make it more illegal by limiting the performance of vehicles. But I don't think you're going to achieve making more people drive more safely more of the time. Sometimes people aren't going to drive safely, and they can make you just as dead if they buy a Ford F-150 Raptor and drive it into you as they could if they buy a Tesla Cybertruck and drive it into you, right? You're not actually achieving greater safety levels by banning the sale of the Tesla Cybertruck, right? Just because you don't like that it's fast or quick. The Cybertruck is an over 6,000-pound piece of steel that has no business going a quarter mile in under 11 seconds. National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Homendy told me, why do we need that? Maybe it's not always about what Jennifer Homendy thinks we need, right? The public should not be limited to purchasing only things Jennifer Homendy believes are needed by them, right? I don't know who told Jennifer Homendy that it's her job to limit the sale of things to be only things she thinks people need. But I'm glad the government doesn't work that way. I'm glad we're not permitted to purchase only things Jennifer Homendy thinks we need. To summarize, we don't yet know how dangerous the Cybertruck really is, but some of its design choices are disturbing, particularly when factoring in the vehicle's massive weight and overpowered engine. Overpowered engine. In whose opinion? In David Zipper's opinion. Given Tesla's myopic interest in its vehicle's occupants, if you're ever in an argument with another car, you will win, Musk has promised. I mean, I would have said joked. Musk has joked. The potential danger to other street users is real. Now we get to the crazy part. Even if alarmed federal auto regulators wanted to pause or slow the Cybertruck's rollout, they probably can't. I don't know of anything NHTSA can do within its legal framework to prevent something like the Cybertruck launch, Arbelayez told me. Well, good. I'm glad that our government has checks and balances preventing bureaucrats who work at NHTSA from halting the sale of vehicles that they think are too heavy or too fast. The reason relates to self-certification, a foundational principle of American vehicle regulations. Self-certification works pretty much as it sounds. Automakers are free to design and sell whatever they like as long as they certify with a label that each car adheres to the encyclopedic Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards. FMVSS sets design standards for specific elements like seatbelts and steering wheels. I don't know if future Teslas are all going to have steering wheels, but it contains massive omissions, i.e. nothing in it references pedestrian safety or maximum acceleration. Updating it takes years. As long as car makers like Tesla do not expressly violate the rules, they are free to use whatever designs and features they like in the United States. Well, good. I'm glad that freedom exists for people to make stuff that they think other people are going to want to buy. That's good. Although Elon Musk said on a recent podcast that the Cybertruck had passed all of the regulatory tests, no such tests are required or even available from the federal government prior to the launch of a new vehicle. Well, regulatory includes more than federal, so there may be required state testing. I wouldn't put it past California to have required testing you have to do, or who knows what other tests Elon was referring to besides what the federal government requires. Tesla just needs to give itself the go-ahead. If an FMVSS-compliant vehicle seems dangerous, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration can only intervene after launching an investigation that identifies a pattern of related incidents, often crashes. NHTSA has recall authority, said the NTSB's Homendy, but they have to wait until something happens before they can take action. In the meantime, faulty vehicles are on the road, endangering everyone. Faulty! Come on, man. Faulty vehicles. They're doing as they are designed to do. Badass performance is what Elon promised. And that's what he calls faulty. He says it's bigger, stronger, faster, more capable, and David Zipper doesn't like any of that. He would prefer that you just keep buying Ford F-150 Raptors and Dodge Ram pickups and Chevy Silverados, I guess, even though they are more deadly than Cybertrucks, at least so far. It's another story entirely across the Atlantic, as Musk himself seems to understand. Speaking last year in Berlin, he quipped that in the US things are legal by default, and in Europe they're illegal by default. He's not wrong. In the EU, an automaker seeking to sell a new model or feature must first obtain a government green light known as type approval. That process can be cumbersome as regulatory staff conduct tests and pore over data, and the EU regulators have real power. They have already forced Tesla to adjust its autopilot system to provide certain safety features to all car owners, not just those who access them through gamification. I have no idea what this phrase is supposed to mean, and David Zipper didn't tell us. If you know what he means by that phrase, let me know in the comments below. Although Tesla has promised to make the Cybertruck available to American consumers next year, the company has shared no such time frame for doing so in Europe. Given Europe's more stringent regulatory system, that should come as no surprise. IIHS's Arbelayez noted that the Cybertruck may be especially vulnerable in the EU because its regulations, unlike American ones, evaluate pedestrian crash impacts. Yeah, Tesla's always performed great in the NCAP testing. Have Europe's auto safety regulations blocked reckless car designs and reduced crash deaths? Answering that question is challenging. since it requires disentangling the effect of car design from myriad road safety variables, speed limits, car ownership rates, and the frequency of drunk driving, to name just a few. What we do know is that Europeans are far less likely to die in crashes than Americans, whether deaths are measured per capita or per miles driven. It is hard to see how faster developments of novel models like the Cybertruck will help the US close that gap. It's hard for you to see, huh? How about with better technology? How about with better computer hardware on board, better cameras to visualize the world around the car to prevent accidents from occurring? Would that be better than driving your big dumb pickup truck around? It's just as heavy, it's just as fast. They kill people all the time. I'll find you some stats on that before the video's over. Yeah, I mean you can't just say, hey, the pedestrian death rate is lower in Europe than it is in the U.S. because of all these variables and dozens more, right? The population centers in Europe are much older than the population centers in the U.S. are, so you get these very walkable downtown areas that cause people to do less driving in the first place, and the driving that is occurring is happening at much lower speeds than in U.S. cities where it's common to have, interstate highways running right through the middle of cities and traffic whizzing past at high speeds. The faster traffic is moving, the likelier people are to die. And there's got to be another at least half dozen stories like that you could tell about why the pedestrian death rate would be different. Predictably, car makers hate the idea of the federal government adopting a European-style pre-approval system for cars, which would require substantial investments in time and money. But the concept has precedent. For decades, the U.S. has used a type approval framework to oversee aviation, with the Federal Aviation Administration requiring that new airplane designs and technologies be vetted prior to deployment. Oh yeah, we need that debacle for way more vehicles. Like, how many new airliners are designed and produced each year? Not all that many. I mean, they're still flying around 747s that were designed in the 50s, 50s or 60s. Lots of 747s in the air from Boeing. And I'm sure most of Airbus's designs are decades old as well. Maybe with some newer technology for computers and stuff. But I mean, as far as the airframe, I think it's older designs still being used mostly. That system seems to be working quite well. Earlier this year, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg noted that American aviation is the safest in the world, with just 2 people dying in commercial plane crashes in the U.S. from 2010 to 2021. But the American track record on road safety is as abysmal as its aviation performance is stellar. On a per passenger mile basis, driving in the U.S. is over 100 times more dangerous than flying, and there is no other rich country in the world whose inhabitants are at a comparable risk of dying in a car crash. Residents of Canada, the similarly spacious and car-centric neighbor to the north, are only 40% as likely to be killed in a motor vehicle collision. Well, when the roads are frozen over all the time, you have to drive real slow. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Canadian viewers. I know. There's at least 3 months a year when your roads aren't frozen over. I'm kidding. Even at this early stage, it's a safe bet that Tesla's design choices for the Cybertruck will not reduce American crash deaths, and they may increase them. And if the vehicle does prove to be as deadly as some fear, like me, David Zipper, it will take time, years likely, before the federal officials can intervene to protect everyone who is not inside one. For the sake of everyone's safety, perhaps Musk should have to ask for permission rather than forgiveness before unleashing his next apocalyptic brainchild on American streets. That's the last paragraph. Future Tense is a partnership of Slate New America and Arizona State University that examines emerging technologies, public policy, and society. Well, we should see what some of the comments were. We already saw this one from Rolf. So let's see what the most popular replies were here. These are just David Zipper giving you parts of the article along with photos of Cybertrucks. So I'm going to flip past them super fast. This person tried the angle, now do the GM's Hummer EV, but you won't, except that he already did. He hated that one too. Yes to electric cars, but not the Hummer EV, which he called an environmental disaster. Well, yeah, it's an abomination, it's an atrocity. There shouldn't be a Hummer EV. It's not a very well designed car, but people should be allowed to buy it, in my opinion. In terms of overall safety, aren't Model 3 and Y some of the safest cars on the road? They're also heavier and faster than other sedans or SUVs. So is it the auto braking or something making up for that? How does that affect the Cybertruck versus an F-250 for overall safety, for example? That's a good point. A lot of people liked. So many assumptions and presumptive panic here. Tesla has a track record of making safe cars and getting them approved in global markets. Why assume this team forgot about all of that in the truck? I'll wait to be disappointed if these problems actually materialize. I was reminded reading this of the Nate Bargatze stand-up bit, the one he did from Universal Studios in Orlando, outdoors, where he talks about going to a corporate event and just bombing his whole act, right? And he gets off stage to talk to the person who hired him to do the gig. And he starts his apology by saying, "Hey, you know, I used to be able to do comedy. I guess I forgot." Right? Why are we assuming Tesla's? Oh, the punchline to that joke, which Nate Bargatze tells a lot better than I do, is that the promoter for that event forgot to tell him most of the people in attendance do not speak English. And Nate said that would have been helpful for me to know, but not that I could have changed it up. He only speaks one language. He speaks English. All right, enough diversion on that one. Tesla's safety engineering team did not forget how to make safe vehicles. The Cybertruck is going to be comparably safe, is my expectation, to the safest vehicles in the world Tesla already makes, the models S, 3, X, and Y. Let's see. Can't wait for this journalist to have to say, my research must have been guided by principles other than engineering and physics. Maybe I'm just angry. It kind of sounds that way. Oh, I see what's going on here. You're just a talentless hack journalist, said Catman at Catboy02. Those aren't my words. I'm just reading. So if you Google most dangerous car on US roads today, what do you get? You get the Ford F-Series, which, if the Cybertruck doesn't exist, people are going to buy at a pretty high rate, a pretty high replacement rate. So what's a good substitute for somebody who wants to buy a Cybertruck? A Ford F-Series. What's number two? The Chevy Silverado. Yeah, that's another pickup that people will go buy if they don't buy a Tesla Cybertruck. 10,845 fatal crashes, 7,718 fatal crashes, and the Honda Accord, I'm surprised to see in third place, frankly. You think of Hondas as being safer than that. Civic is also here, Camry is here, Corolla is here. These are not adjusted for, there's no per capita adjustment on these. So what you're seeing here are a lot of the highest selling cars that are resulting in the highest count of fatality rate, or absolute count of fatalities, not rate at all. So you would want to look at this as a rate, but I think you're going to find pickups high on the list when you do it that way as well. So there you go. There's no Teslas on this list. Not that Tesla has been selling their vehicles for long enough to have made it onto this list, but they're going to be way, way down the list, folks. That's the point being made here. If you actually knew anything about the FAA type certification process, you would definitely not hold it up as some shining example of effective safety oversight. I don't know a lot about the FAA type certification process, but if you do and would like to provide additional detail on this post from Lelius Rose at Lelius, feel free to do so in the comments below. But Ford F-150s and 350s and whatnot are okay. At least with Cybertruck's sloped hood, you can still see children in front of the car. Yeah, I was trying to make that point. AI Driver made a great video about this. Let's see what else we have here. There's that comment we saw already. It'll be banned in the EU. EU regulations require a rounding of 3.2 millimeters on vehicle protruding exterior. Unfortunately, it's impossible to make a 3.2 millimeter rounding on a 1.4 millimeter stainless steel sheet, said Lars Moravy, VP of Engineering at Tesla. How did it get approved in the US? You're allowed to self-approve in the US, is the answer you would have found if you had read the article. Miguel E. Cabrera. No crumple zones at all is what Jet claims to have seen in the crash test video, except the crash test video is extremely similar to what other pickups do when they're crash tested. And the Rivian, F-150 Lightning, Hummer EV, Silverado EV, etc. are all just fine products. It's not a Tesla problem, this. An F-150 Raptor R or Ram TRX are not electric and still do sub or low 4-second 0 to 60 and weigh well over 2,700 kilograms empty. Get mad at all of them. Yeah. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, there was a recall of autopilot for Tesla in the US, fixed by an over-the-air software update in 2 days for free. U.S. road safety crisis, is this satire? Sadly, lots and lots of people die every year on the roads in the U.S. I think it's about 40,000 people per year. That is a lot. And it's a serious problem, and it's one that Tesla is working hard to address if the government will get out of their way and let them do it. And that's probably a good place for me to end my video today. Who's hating hard on Tesla today? It's David Zipper at Slate, sorry. As I check back in with Loki, who is snoozing in bed, before I outro by saying if you've enjoyed today's video, click the like button. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, why not go ahead and subscribe to my channel? You can do that for free on YouTube. I'll leave you a link over here. There are other ways to support me you can find in the bio or the video description. Special shout out to my executive producers, Cant and Rebellionaire.com, and I'll see you in the next one.